From Buckingham Palace came the announcement that the king had initiated the formal removal of Prince Andrew's styles, titles, and honours, a signal that the clock on his royal life had begun to run out. The faint ticking of time closing in on him echoes through this scandal, one that has shaken the monarchy at its foundation because of Andrew's association with Jeffrey Epstein. Not metaphorically and not sometime in the future. Right now the countdown is on. 90 days, 13 weeks, 2,160 hours stand between Andrew and what is shaping up to be the most humiliating forced move in modern royal memory. And this shift isn't merely about relocating to a different residence. It represents the total dismantling of a way of life, the collapse of an identity, and the unraveling of a partnership that embodied royal dysfunction for close to 30 years. Imagine it, a former prince stripped bare, no military honours, no cherished patronages, no lingering sense of status. He is left to gather his 72 stuffed bears while his former wife of nearly 3 decades prepares her own escape, heading in a completely opposite direction. Why such an earthquake after so many years of their unusual post-divorce coexistence? 2 words: the money disappeared. King Charles III brought a financial axe down, and with one decisive stroke, he severed more than financial assistance. He fractured relationships, unearthed long-buried fossils, and exposed the reality behind what truly held Andrew and Sarah Ferguson together. Spoiler: it wasn't love, nor loyalty, nor familial devotion. It was money, straightforward and uncomplicated. And now that the financial flow has stopped, watch how quickly their image as the happiest divorced pair morphs into a bitter and desperate former duo. What comes next overturns everything the public believed they knew about the Yorks. Royal Lodge, the jewel no one wanted to surrender, is crucial to understanding Andrew's spiraling grief. Envision a residence so extravagant, so steeped in grandeur, that it reduces most millionaires' homes to garden sheds. A Georgian mansion of 30 rooms, set within 98 acres of Windsor Great Park, a property practically oozing history and aristocratic weight. 30 rooms. Let that settle in for a moment. This isn't a comfortable home or a stately house. It borders on a palace, with a sweeping drawing room that could host a ballroom gathering, multiple reception spaces, its own chapel, staff quarters, and gardens tended by a dedicated team. Security systems worth fortunes protect it, and its breadth offers Andrew ample room to dedicate an entire area simply to his teddy bear collection. Built in the 17th century and occupied over decades by numerous royals, the place radiates heritage and classic elegance. And what did Andrew pay yearly for this privilege? A single British pound. While ordinary families struggled with mortgages, soaring rents, and staggering utility bills, Andrew lived in a mansion worth around £30 million for less than the cost of a Tesco meal deal. In fact, cheaper than that. The real costs, hundreds of thousands in maintenance, astronomical heating expenses, staff wages, and constant structural upkeep, were shouldered by taxpayers. His 75-year lease signed in 2004 promised him near-lifetime occupancy for virtually nothing. Andrew believed he had secured his fate, that he'd spend the rest of his days staging teddy bears throughout his rooms. He believed incorrectly. Before we move on, there's an odd but revealing detail that cannot be ignored: the teddy bears. All 72 of them. Former household workers have described how Andrew kept these stuffed toys meticulously arranged across Royal Lodge. Each bear had its assigned place, and staff were given precise instructions on how to position them. One former worker explained anonymously, it was like caring for a giant child. He'd walk in and check whether teddy number 37 was angled correctly on the chaise lounge. Honestly, it felt bizarre, even unsettling. The bears symbolize something far deeper than eccentricity. They reflect a man who never matured, never met real accountability, and floated inside a bubble of privilege so insulated that clinging to childish habits into his 60s seemed perfectly acceptable. Now he must wrap each bear, place them in their labeled boxes, and relocate them to a home far smaller and far less impressive. The British tabloids had a frenzy with it. One headline declared, "Norfolk locals slam Andy. He will move in with 72 teddies. We can't bear him either." The mockery captures exactly how the nation views Andrew, with disdain tinged by dark humour. Now let's turn to the architect of this upheaval, King Charles III, and why his actions unfolded the way they did. Charles finds himself in an impossible position. At 75, he is the oldest monarch to ascend the throne, having waited decades longer than any successor in British history. Alongside the crown came a family in disorder, Harry launching attacks from California through documentaries and memoirs, Andrew submerged in scandal due to his Epstein ties, rising public skepticism about the monarchy, a swelling Republican movement, and Charles himself battling cancer while attempting to manage a shrinking family institution. Pressure to address the Andrew problem had mounted from all directions: public opinion, media scrutiny, and internal family demands. Prince William, preparing to inherit the crown one day, reportedly confronted his father with a firm ultimatum. According to palace insiders, he made it unmistakably clear: Andrew is toxic. We cannot be associated with him. He must be removed, or we will distance ourselves. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, supported William's stance. They drew a firm line. Andrew living next door in Windsor was unacceptable and had become a liability threatening the monarchy's reputation. But Charles is not just a monarch. He is Andrew's older brother, bound by decades of family history, childhood memories, and the legacy of a mother who adored Andrew despite his flaws. Duty and affection collided, and as often happens within the royal sphere, personal emotions complicated formal decisions. Charles approached the situation cautiously at first. He proposed relocating Andrew to alternative residences years earlier, including Frogmore Cottage, the same place Harry and Meghan. It was smaller, more manageable, and far less conspicuous. Andrew refused again and again. Pride, ego, refusal to acknowledge wrongdoing. He clung to the belief that the scandal would eventually pass and his royal privileges would be restored. He could not have been more mistaken. Eventually, Charles reached his limit. Instead of forcibly removing Andrew and igniting accusations of being cold-hearted, he engineered a calculated and clever solution, a financial arrangement that exposed everyone's true motives while softening the public blow. Brutally effective, but undeniably strategic. Now let's break down the financial package King Charles constructed, because the details explain why everything erupted so violently. Andrew was offered a single lump sum payout, estimated somewhere between £250,000 and £500,000. This fund was created strictly to cover the costs involved in relocating, hiring professional movers for the contents of a 30-room mansion, transporting 72 teddy bears, arranging furnishings in his new residence, and handling the initial expenses tied to establishing a new home. For ordinary people, £500,000 would reshape an entire life, enough to purchase a comfortable home, retire early, or build long-term security. But for Andrew, the amount is barely sufficient to complete the move. With antique furniture, extensive possessions, and his inflated lifestyle expectations, the money will evaporate almost as soon as the last box is delivered. Additionally, the king agreed to grant Andrew an annual allowance estimated between £100,000 and £200,000. For the average individual, this is a luxurious income, but context dramatically alters its meaning. Andrew had grown accustomed to expenditures far beyond that. His life at Royal Lodge, supported by taxpayer funds and royal budgets, exceeded £500,000 annually when tallying maintenance, staff wages, security, and personal costs. This stipend, therefore, represents a tremendous reduction. For the first time in his life, Andrew will be required to budget, to choose, to live within boundaries, a foreign concept to someone raised inside an environment of limitless privilege. But the most explosive element was a clause that turned everything upside down. The financial support comes with oversight. Andrew's spending will be monitored by Charles, or more likely by the king's financial advisors. There will be scrutiny. There will be controls. Andrew cannot simply burn through money and return begging for more. What Charles put in place amounts to the monetary equivalent of placing a grown man on supervised allowance. It essentially says, I do not trust you with finances, so I will oversee them myself. For a man born into royalty, who served as a naval officer and once enjoyed significant responsibilities, this is deeply humiliating. It strips him of independence and forces him into a childlike dependency. And here lies the key turning point. This financial arrangement was meant solely for Andrew. Not a single pound was designated for Sarah Ferguson. Not now, not later. That is when the entire situation blew apart. To understand why Sarah's reaction was so intense and immediate, it is essential to see the reality of her finances, which have been increasingly unstable for decades. She has been stacking one solution atop another, hoping the structure would hold, but now the entire tower is collapsing. Consider the Mayfair property fiasco. In 2020, during the chaotic pandemic property market, she bought a high-end Mayfair flat for around £5 million. By 2024, she was forced to sell at a loss. This is a staggering indicator of desperation, because high-end London property seldom dips in value without extreme circumstances. Selling at a loss means she needed fast cash, urgently, and could not wait for the right buyer or proper offer. Now examine her entrepreneurial history. Her Budgie the Helicopter books experienced some momentum in the 1990s, but that market waned. She served as a Weight Watchers ambassador until her fluctuating weight made the partnership difficult. Her lifestyle brand Heartmore LLC collapsed under serious debt. She declared bankruptcy in 2009 with hundreds of thousands owed. Her Duchess Discoveries products went nowhere. T Ventures sputtered. Speaking engagements came irregularly and brought in inconsistent income. For someone with enormous advantages, name recognition, royal ties, access to wealthy circles, the pattern is remarkably unsuccessful. Then there was the disastrous 2010 sting operation. News of the World journalists, disguised as businessmen, captured Sarah on camera after she'd been drinking. In that footage, she openly discussed selling access to Andrew. £500,000 when you can to me. I can open any door you want. Look after me and he'll look after you. You'll get it back tenfold. The clip revealed everything. A woman willing to monetize relationships, connections, and influence for financial gain. Understanding this financial desperation reframes her 28-year arrangement with Andrew. It was not affection holding them together. It was stability, free housing, royal proximity, and opportunity. She provided companionship and domestic support. He provided the home and the lifestyle. It was a transaction masquerading as harmony. And once the money disappeared, her exit was immediate. When the Times of London published the scoop, their headline made the situation plain. Andrew had stopped fighting once he realized he no longer had his ex-wife's backing. The article exposed the bombshell detail. Sarah had informed family that she would not be joining him in Sandringham. She was making her own plans and stepping away from nearly 3 decades of post-divorce cohabitation. After defending Andrew through the Epstein scandal, the catastrophic BBC interview, the settlement with Virginia Giuffre, and the stripping of his roles, she left at the moment the finances dried up. A palace insider told the Daily Mail, Sarah has always been financially motivated. We knew that, but we thought she had at least some genuine affection for Andrew. This proves otherwise. The moment the money dried up, she was gone. It's remarkably cold. Another York family source said bluntly, she's a gold digger. We've known it for decades. This whole best friend story was an act. Now that the money's gone, her true nature is obvious. Caught in the explosion are Beatrice and Eugenie, the true casualties of this unfolding disaster. Sources say the sisters are deeply distressed, particularly by their mother. Rebecca English of the Daily Mail shared a stunning insight. The sisters are more disappointed in Sarah than in Andrew. More disappointed in their mother than their father. Think about that. Andrew is the one linked to Epstein, the one who faced allegations, the one who paid millions in settlement, the one whose actions triggered this entire downfall, yet the daughters feel more betrayed by Sarah. Because with Andrew, they understood his flaws. But Sarah had always spoken about loyalty, unity, and putting family first. And now she abandoned those values the second the money stopped. For Beatrice and Eugenie, the tripod, as the three of them referred to themselves, the collapse is personal and profound. A tripod needs all 3 legs. Remove one, and the structure topples. A close friend told The Telegraph that the sisters feel betrayed. She talked their whole lives about loyalty, but when their father needs her most, she walks away. The hurt goes deeper than embarrassment. It shakes the foundation of their childhood memories. If Sarah preached loyalty but acted the opposite, what was real and what was performance? Adding more stress is the financial threat. If Sarah is broke and Andrew cannot support her, she may turn to her daughters. Beatrice married into a wealthy family. Eugenie's husband has financial connections. The possibility that their mother may seek money from them places them in an impossible emotional bind. Now let's turn to Andrew's next destination, Norfolk. The Sandringham estate, privately owned by the king, spans 20,000 acres 110 miles north of London. It is the royal family's hideaway, a place traditionally tied to Christmas gatherings and private retreats. Andrew will be placed in one of the estate's properties, not the main residence, but one of the more sizable cottages. It remains comfortable, even luxurious by normal standards. But compared to Royal Lodge, it is exile. Royal Lodge symbolized status, visibility, and proximity to Windsor Castle. Sandringham is isolation. It marks a removal from influence, from public life, from the royal centre. And it is clear that locals are far from welcoming. One Norfolk resident told reporters, "We don't want him here either. He is a horrible man. Why should we have to have him in our community?" Others were harsher. He's not welcome. He's an embarrassment to Britain, and now he's going to be our neighbour. No thank you. Local headlines echoed the sentiment. Norfolk doesn't want Andrew either. Everywhere, Windsor, London, Norfolk, the message is consistent. Prince Andrew is unwanted. No wealth, no history, no lost titles can change that. But before we go further, we must address something that fuels nearly every one of Andrew's battles, financial missteps, and delusions about restoration: his profound denial. Denial has shaped his decisions for years, and now it is accelerating his collapse. Andrew has never accepted responsibility for anything tied to the Epstein scandal. Even after the shameful BBC Newsnight interview, even after being stripped of royal duties, even after the public humiliation, he refused to acknowledge wrongdoing. Instead, he clung to the belief that he could one day return to public life, reclaim his titles, and resume service as though nothing had happened. This mindset is so entrenched that he has reportedly argued with family members, insisting, "I will be back. I have done nothing wrong. This will all pass." But nothing is going to pass. If anything, the walls are closing in. A former royal aide explained, he genuinely does not understand how severe his actions were, nor how badly he damaged the monarchy. He keeps insisting that one day the public will forgive him. Forgiveness, however, is not coming. The world has changed, the monarchy has changed, and even within the royal family there is no appetite to rehabilitate him. Prince William is said to have been blunt in private discussions, telling a senior staff member, "I won't allow him to return. It would destroy everything we are trying to rebuild." William's stance is absolute, and Catherine supports him unequivocally. The future of the monarchy depends on distancing the institution from scandal, and Andrew symbolises exactly what the modern royal family cannot afford to represent. And that is why Charles acted decisively. Not because he wanted to, but because he had no alternative. The monarchy's survival demanded action. Now let's examine Royal Lodge one more time, because understanding why Andrew refuses to leave reveals everything about his psychology. Royal Lodge was the last piece of his old life. His mother gave him not just the keys, but a sense of permanence. It was his sanctuary, his fortress, and the physical embodiment of maternal protection. Losing it means losing the last connection to the days when he felt untouchable. Insiders describe him wandering the halls at night, wandering through rooms bigger than most family homes, refusing to pack even a single box. One longtime staff member recounted privately, he cries in the rooms. He doesn't want to let go. It's the only place where he feels safe. But the palace has made it clear, sentiment will not override necessity. King Charles has personally toured Royal Lodge. He has seen the state of disrepair, the leaking roof, the crumbling exterior, the vast costs required to maintain it. Keeping Andrew there is not only politically impossible but financially irresponsible. Even Queen Camilla is said to have told a confidant, "It's unsustainable. He cannot stay. It's simply not viable." Calling it unsustainable is an understatement. Royal Lodge needs millions in repairs. Repairs Andrew refuses to fund, despite being contractual obligated. His refusal to maintain the property gave Charles the legal grounds he needed to take action. Let's shift now to a critical, often misunderstood part of this drama: Sarah Ferguson's escape plan. Once she realised she would not receive support from Andrew's stipend, she began making arrangements quietly, behind the scenes. She has friends with money, connections in publishing, and a small but loyal social circle. Her goal is to reinvent herself, again, this time as a public figure unburdened by Andrew's reputation. But privately, insiders are skeptical. A literary agent in London told reporters, "Sarah reinvents herself every few years, but it never lasts. She burns through money too quickly." One of her former business associates went further. "She's always looking for the next financial lifeline. She never fixes her spending. She just finds new sources." This pattern explains why she stayed with Andrew after their divorce, why she tolerated the embarrassment of his scandals, and why she brandished the amicable ex's image for nearly 30 years. It served her. It provided stability. It protected her from the consequences of her own financial chaos. Now that the royal safety net is gone, she has detached herself overnight and left Andrew to face the fallout alone. His emotional reaction has been catastrophic. Not only is he losing his home, but he is also losing the one person he believed would stand by him no matter what. The betrayal, in his eyes, is total. A close friend of the York family said, "He's devastated. He always thought she'd support him no matter what. He didn't realize the relationship had changed. Grief and disbelief have reportedly consumed him. He walks around Royal Lodge muttering to himself. He blames the media, the monarchy, the public, anyone except himself. Meanwhile, preparations for his relocation continue. Charles has assigned a transition team to manage the move. Boxes are being labelled, personal items categorized, antique furniture documented for transportation. However, Andrew is resisting at every stage, refusing to approve packing, refusing to cooperate, refusing to accept the reality unfolding around him. One palace staff member described the process bluntly. It's like trying to move a man who is glued to the floor. But the deadline is non-negotiable. 90 days means 90 days. And once those hours run out, the locks will change. Even beyond the physical move, Andrew faces public humiliation. The headlines have already cast him as a man demoted, diminished, and unmoored. He has lost titles, influence, and the aura of privilege he once took for granted. The relocation to Norfolk is not merely geographic, it is symbolic. Royal Lodge represented power, visibility, and proximity to the monarchy's heart. Sandringham represents isolation and exile, a clear message that Andrew is no longer central to the family's operations. Public reaction reinforces the humiliation. Editorials, tabloids, and social commentary have all echoed the sentiment that he is Britain's most unwanted man. The message is unanimous. Andrew's royal pedigree does not exempt him from judgment, ridicule, or consequence. The Epstein scandal looms as an inescapable shadow over this entire saga. Images and documented associations with Jeffrey Epstein continue to haunt him. The allegations from Virginia Giuffre remain unresolved in the public eye. Andrew's response, a disastrous BBC interview claiming medical issues prevented him from sweating, asserting alibis for key dates, and feigning ignorance of meetings with Virginia, did little to restore credibility. He eventually settled financially for an estimated £12 million, yet the settlement carried no admission of guilt. To this day, the US government continues to press for his testimony regarding Epstein, which he has consistently avoided. This situation has become a diplomatic quagmire. Peter Mandelson, the British ambassador to the United States and a figure with his own Epstein connections, adds complexity. Mandelson had previously supported Andrew's appointment as a trade envoy. Now, US authorities desire answers from Andrew about Epstein, while the ambassador's ties present potential conflicts of interest. The result is a tangled web of politics, privilege, and international scrutiny. Andrew's ongoing refusal to cooperate with investigators contributes to a growing perception of guilt. Each day spent hiding behind royal protections, each delay in accountability, further tarnishes not only his reputation but also the monarchy itself. The public sees a man shielded by status, failing to meet basic responsibility, a symbol of systemic privilege without consequence. The monarchy's broader crisis is undeniable. Approval ratings reveal contradictions. 60 to 65% still support the institution, and the personal popularity of King Charles, William, and Catherine remains moderately high. Yet scandals like Andrew's, coupled with perceptions of unearned salaries, entitlement, and immunity from consequences, fuel public frustration. Andrew embodies exactly what many find intolerable about royalty: privilege without purpose. Thus, the king's actions transcend personal family dynamics. The eviction, financial oversight, and public humiliation signal that no one, not even a prince, is above consequence. It is a statement that accountability matters, even within the royal hierarchy. Advocates for a republic, long critical of inherited privilege, seize on Andrew as evidence of systemic corruption. Publications like The New Statesman highlight royal protections of individuals with questionable conduct as justification for replacing monarchy with an elected head of state. While the majority remains loyal to tradition, these narratives gain traction, especially among younger Britons skeptical of unearned power. The monarchy's survival increasingly depends on the leadership of William and Catherine. They exemplify modernized, scandal-free, responsible stewardship, with genuine engagement in charitable work and raising children in a grounded environment. William's insistence that Andrew could not remain at Royal Lodge demonstrates the type of leadership required to restore institutional credibility. The contrast between the disciplined, conscientious heirs and the scandal-laden uncle underscores the stakes for royal continuity. Speculation about King Charles's succession adds another layer. At 77, with health challenges and family turmoil, there is debate whether a sooner transition to William would benefit the monarchy. William represents a new generation, unburdened by past controversies and able to reset the institution's public image. Yet whether Charles would willingly relinquish a crown he waited 73 years to claim remains uncertain. Returning to the financial and relational detonators, the stipend cuts, relocation, and oversight revealed truths previously hidden. Andrew and Sarah's decades-long cohabitation, masquerading as affection, rested primarily on financial convenience. Once the funding ended, the transactional nature of their relationship became undeniable. Andrew reacts with anger and disbelief, mourning the loss of lifestyle, autonomy, and the constant public humiliation. He must leave Royal Lodge and transport his meticulously arranged 72 teddy bears to Norfolk, all under the watchful gaze of the public and monarchy. Fergie reacts with frustration at the sudden removal of financial support, forced to confront her own fiscal reality. Meanwhile, their daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, grapple with disillusionment, witnessing firsthand the stark contrast between familial loyalty claimed and loyalty actually demonstrated. Ultimately, Andrew and Sarah receive consequences proportional to their actions, choices, and entitlement. While full justice, particularly Andrew testifying under oath regarding Epstein, remains unfulfilled, the imposed accountability marks a rare moment of reckoning within royal history. The countdown continues. 3 months until Andrew vacates Royal Lodge, 3 months until his treasured bear collection is boxed and relocated, 3 months until a chapter of royal narrative closes definitively. Fergie is already gone, seeking the next opportunity, proving the transactional nature of her previous loyalty. The fallout is ongoing. The York family will never be the same. And the British monarchy faces a pivotal crossroads. Navigate the crisis effectively, and the institution may endure into the next generation. Fail, and it could herald a broader decline. Finally, questions linger for public debate. Is the king being too lenient toward Andrew? Should Fergie receive any financial aid? Will Beatrice and Eugenie reconcile with their mother? Most critically, should Andrew be compelled to testify in the United States regarding his connection to Epstein? The conversation is far from over. As viewers reflect, the palace's hidden truths emerge. The financial webs, the relational entanglements, and the fragile state of royal legacy all underscore that what happens next may shape not just the York family's fate, but the future of the monarchy itself.